Welcome to the Sober Strength podcast. I'm Jesse Carrajat, certified health coach, fitness trainer, Marine veteran, and founder of Ultim Fitness. Each week, we bring on inspiring guests and top mental and physical health experts to share insights and stories around mental health, physical fitness, and addiction, whether you are sober curious, or simply looking for insights and motivation to build better habits and a healthier lifestyle. This is the show for you. So thank you for being here and showing up for yourself today. Today, we have an incredible guest. We have Eric Hinman. Eric is, he's many things. Peak athlete, elite athlete. He's a 5-time Ironman CrossFit athlete. He's a mountain biker training for the Leadville race. I could go on and on with the things that this man does athletically, but he's also a very, very popular and influential content creator on social media, particularly around wellness, physical fitness, and just leading just an amazing lifestyle. He's an entrepreneur. He has helped to start so many awesome brands that are out there in different spaces, and he's just a rad guy. And he happens to be in Colorado, where I live, and I've just been given that opportunity to get to know him. And I'm so proud to bring him on this show, because anyone listening is going to learn something from this conversation, and then hopefully continue to follow Eric, because his tips and his wisdom around things like exercise, sleep, stress management, habits, addiction, I could go on and on. They are just incredible. And this man provides a blueprint for what is, I think, a purpose-driven and fulfilled life. So I got to spend about an hour with him on the show. We covered a whole bunch of topics between his past, his drinking habits, his races, his physical fitness, his perspective on life, and all of it is going to help you grow deeper in your own fitness and wellness journey. So without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to bring to you the powerful Eric Hinman. All right, as promised, welcome to Sober Strength. I am sitting here with the powerful Eric Hinman. What's up, Eric?
What's up, Jesse? How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. And I have to start with this. I'll admit that I'm having a bit of a moment sitting here staring at you on the show, because as you know, I reached out to you back in November of last year. Ultim Fitness had been a thing for about a month, and I found out you were in Colorado. You had posted some content in the realm of, alcohol use, and I reached out not expecting to hear back from you. And not only did you respond, you responded immediately by extending an invitation. You said, "Hey man, sure, let's meet up. Come down and let's do a workout on a Wednesday." And immediately I was like, oh shit, I'm going to go down there and do a crazy workout with one of the world's fittest men on earth. So it's a surreal experience to have you sitting here on the show 7 months later. So thanks for being here, brother.
Heck yeah. Yeah, it was so fun hanging when you came for Founders Only. We had a great weekend. Obviously, some other awesome people in the mix too. But yeah, I'm a big fan of in-person interactions that are memorable and, just like bonding over discomfort. Let's hit a hard workout. Let's sit in a hot sauna. Let's jump in a cold stream. Let's get right to it.
I love it. Bonding over discomfort. We already have an amazing quote in the first minute rolling here. Bonding over discomfort. But Eric, man, I've never done this before. And you have so much to offer, whether it's wellness, mindfulness, physical training, the whole deal. My challenge here as host of the show is to try to extract as much information and stories and motivation out of you as I can. But I've never done this before. I'm going to start off with reading you a quote that you said. And then just kind of ask you to respond to it, and we'll go from there. And that quote is, at 26, my career dictated my life. I worked set hours and I dressed the part. My schedule was dictated by others and I didn't really exercise. I chased money, traded my time for it, and cared deeply about the public perception of success. I also, and I'm almost finished, resorted to excessively drinking alcohol to achieve a state change. I thought this was the way to meet people, to be vulnerable, and to have fun. Eric, I think so many people can relate with that, myself included, but not so many people make the necessary changes in their life to move away from that mindset or that way of living. Why did you?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that so many of us in our late teens and early 20s in high school and then on to college, that's just what fun is. At least it was for me, and I think many others. I didn't go to a school where the mountains were present, like Boulder, Colorado, or, having an ocean. But even in those places, I feel like partying is a huge part of fun and a huge part of meeting people, socializing, and status. So, yeah, I mean, I fell victim to that. I wanted to be in the party crowd in college because I thought that was what you did, and that's how you met people, and that's how you were perceived to be cool. If you were going out and partying every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, if you were ruling the beer pong table, if you could do more shots than the person next to you, I thought all of that was the status game, and I wanted to be the king of partying. So that's how I spent much of my late teens and up until about 26 or 27 years old, until I found myself in a place where I didn't have great energy. I realized that I was just chasing this public perception of success, trying to make more money, which honestly was just stressing me out more and more, as opposed to making me happier, because I had, hundreds and hundreds of insurance clients that I was answering to, and I was glued to my BlackBerry at the time. And yeah, I had no free time. I was living life on other people's terms. So when I hired a personal trainer in my late 20s and started my wellness journey, I realized that was so much more fulfilling than how I was previously living my life. And that hitting a hard workout, I felt so good after it. And
Mm.
progressing in running, progressing in triathlon, joining a triathlon club, doing my first triathlon, doing my first half marathon, all of these things, I felt so much more fulfilled than making more money and falling victim again to the public perception of success and trying to show that I was successful in society's eyes. So yeah, the from 29 to 34, I drastically changed my life. I changed my daily behaviors and activities. My friend group changed. What I enjoyed, what I craved, what I chased, what made me fulfilled, all of that changed. And, as I sit here now today, or stand here at my standing desk here today at 43 years old and just outside of Denver, Colorado, my life is filled with things that ultimately my head hits the pillow at night and I'm like, that was a fucking great day. And that's how I want every single day to be. I'm living life on my terms. My day is very much based around wellness activities. I'm interacting with the people that I want to interact with. I'm doing business with people I want friendships with. I have easy access to nature, mountain biking, trail running, getting outside, getting sunlight. And we host people all the time at our house doing contrast therapy, getting in the sauna, getting in an ice barrel. And I love leaving others with these memorable experiences. So yeah, that's how I live my life today. And it's massively different than how I lived my life in my 20s.
Yeah, wow. So more on that change, so that pivot in your life. I feel like you had a realization. I heard you say you got a trainer, and that was a part of it. But the why was just made clear, why you made that change. But how did you do it? Your transformation. A lot of people start there, and then maybe they'll just incorporate fitness and kind of drag some habits along with them. They certainly don't become a five-time Ironman, a basically, highest level CrossFit athlete, a high level mountain biker. What do you think it is about you that made that pivot so dramatically into the lifestyle that you're living now?
I mean, I definitely have an obsessive personality. So, I think that's why I was so committed to partying. And that's why now I'm so committed to wellness is, I'm very structured. And when I find something that I enjoy, I stick with it and I do it for a long period of time. So, that obviously was a trap in my late teens and early 20s where, I was just kind of had tunnel vision of like, I'm going to party. I want to be the best partier. And, now these last 15 years, I've really had tunnel vision around progressing in health and wellness and inspiring others to adopt some of these behaviors that have benefited me so much. And I mean, looking back to when I was in my 20s, the two big things that allowed me to radically transform my life were, committing to something else, which that was that personal trainer. I needed his knowledge, his motivation, the structure, I was paying him, so I had to show up. And also, I I stuck with it long enough to find flow state within it. I feel like most of us, we fall off the track because we don't give things long enough to really drop into it. And my kind of rule of thumb is it takes about 15 minutes to drop into anything you're doing, and it takes around 3 to 5 months to make something habitual. So for me, like I was committing to 45-minute personal training sessions, and the first 15 minutes often sucked, but after 15 minutes, I could kind of drop into the moment. And I did it for long enough that it became a habit. No longer did I need the discipline and motivation to do it. It was just like, this is what I do every
Yeah.
single day at 6 a.m. I go, I see a personal trainer, I get my ass kicked, and it's making me better. And I mean, that led to so many other positive behaviors. Ultimately it led to joining a triathlon club, running again, buying a bike, signing up for my first triathlon, signing up for my first Olympic distance triathlon, signing up for my first half Ironman, signing up and completing my first full Ironman. And, through that time period, again, I was tinkering with sleep protocols. I was tinkering with diet. I was tinkering with supplementation. I was tinkering with recovery. So, again, looking back, like it was just one change that I made. And then
Yeah.
all of these other things compounded on top of it. And, I replaced one thing with another. I think that's super important. For me, going out was about, meeting girls and meeting friends and having status. And I replaced that with exercise, where I found a whole different friend group through this triathlon club and through competing in triathlon and then through joining a CrossFit gym. So I think it's important that, if you're looking to say quit a bad addiction, find another thing that you can throw yourself into that replaces that addiction. And that's what I did.
I love that. Yeah, you just hit on two core components. When it comes to recovering addiction, people will disagree and kind of get lost in the weeds about the different programs and processes. But two things that I think everyone agrees on is if you're trying to remove a bad, insidious habit, replace it with a good one. That's one. And you already hit on that. And the other one is the importance of the community around you and how they will motivate you and sometimes even indirectly inspire you to move away from that habit, right? And let's stay there for 1 second. So on the alcohol piece, when you decided to move towards training and then triathlons, ultra triathlons, the whole deal, what was your relationship with alcohol like? Did you just kind of cut cold turkey, or did you gradually move it out? What did that look like?
Yeah, it was a gradual shift. I mean, I got to a pretty bad place with alcohol in my mid 20s. I mean, I was partying every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, not remembering most of those nights. And then, I was the guy showing up to Thanksgiving, with my family, super hungover and not present and just wanting to sleep the entire time. So, I was starting to get to a place where I just didn't feel good. I didn't feel like a good person. I didn't feel like I was showing up for those that I cared about as the best version of myself. So
Hmm.
with triathlon, it was a progression from, let's say I had triathlon club on a Saturday or a Sunday. Like I wasn't going to go out on those nights because I didn't want to throw up when I was out on the run after the bike. Um, but over like a 2-year period, when I went from doing my first triathlon to doing my first half Ironman and my first full Ironman, like at that point, I pretty much had gone cold turkey. But it was a gradual shift. It went from, getting blackout drunk on the weekends to, having a few beers and a few glasses of wine at dinner most Fridays and Saturday nights to maybe once a week, then once a month, and then not even thinking about it because I wasn't really staying out late anymore because I had to get up at 5 in the morning to hit my first workout of three, and
Yeah.
sleep became so important to me that I didn't want to sacrifice my sleep. I mean, also during those years, I wasn't traveling a lot. I mean, I was very, very structured. So it really just came down to it didn't serve the purpose of me wanting to get to the Ironman World Championships in Kona. I was much more focused on the training, the recovery, the sleep, and yeah, alcohol just went by the wayside. And with that, like you said, a lot of my friends also um, my friend group changed. My friends all of a sudden became the people I was training with, and their behaviors were radically different than my party friends. So, I didn't have those same decisions where people were asking me to go out late at night or to go to a late night dinner, to have a bottle of wine. People were asking me instead to go for a long bike ride on a Saturday morning and to go for a long run and to hit a triathlon club and to hit a CrossFit workout. So, yeah, the people around you matter so much in what your reality is going to be. And then like your environment too, like moving here to Colorado, it generally attracts people who want to be outside recreating. So, the majority of my friends here do that. So very rarely does anyone ever ask me to go to any kind of late night endeavor.
I love that, man. Yes. One of the things you've talked about, Eric, and I'll throw the word out there so you can start wrapping your head around it, is dopamine. And I've read some articles that you've written about how essentially, these are my words, not yours, when the dopamine is free and cheap and floods your system, it's going to have negative consequence. Whereas when it's earned through hard work and other things, it's going to have positive impact. Now, again, those are my words, but can you say a little bit more about that? Hey, everybody. Sorry to interrupt this episode. It's your host, Jesse Carrajat, and I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying this episode, would you please consider subscribing to this show and leaving a rating and review? That simple act goes such a long way to help us grow the show, reach more people, and make a positive impact in their lives. So thank you for considering, and now back to the show.
100%. So, we can all get a hit of dopamine from drugs, from alcohol, but there's consequences that come with it. So now I look at any of these dopamine hits that I want to get as, how can I get it with no consequences? So jumping in a cold body of water, getting in a sauna, doing a hard workout, going for a run, going for a hike in nature, having flow state conversations with like-minded people, being in an environment where you don't want to be anywhere else. Like all of these provide a dopamine hit with no consequences. So that's how I want to live my life. Like I like being in flow state. I like feeling energized. I like that feeling of, being high on life, but I found all of these ways to do it naturally and with no consequences. So I think those are important things to consider because it's much more sustainable when you're doing it with no consequences than it is when you're doing it with consequences.
Yeah, well said. And back to the environment that you brought up and the importance of the people that you surround yourself with. You know that I was just down at your residence a couple weeks ago for this amazing gathering of wellness and fitness entrepreneurs. It's called Founders Only. But what you don't know is I have never done an event like that. I've never walked into an environment where some people know each other, some people don't, and you're stepping in, you're meeting people. But more importantly, I've never done something like that without the crutch of alcohol to kind of turn off or ease some of that maybe discomfort or anxiety, right? So I was going into that event just thinking and wondering like, A, am I going to be comfortable? And B, is there going to be drinking? I was wondering about that. And 2 days later, when I was leaving that amazing event of all those awesome people, it changed my whole perspective of what it means to connect and socialize. It was 2 days of physical events that were hard, brainstorming, connecting, sharing ideas, sharing wisdom, laughing. Not a single drop of alcohol was consumed for that entire weekend.
Yeah, that's how my life has been for the last, 15 years now. So it never seems abnormal to me anymore, but I can certainly see why it would be abnormal for many. And again, like, I mean, you've experienced it. Sitting in a hot sauna doing contrast therapy, like you get vulnerable really quick with the people around you, just like you would when you're intoxicated. Uh,
Yeah.
but you remember it, and I feel like the conversations go much, much deeper than when you're intoxicated. So, I mean, that is my favorite social setting. You know this from messaging me on Instagram. Like that's generally the first thing that I offer when someone messages me and they're in Colorado. They'll be like, "Hey, can I hit a workout with you, or you want to meet up for coffee?" I'm like, "No, just come to the house. Let's hit a sauna session," because that's where I've had some of the best conversations of my life. And with the sauna, it's nice because you don't have to put in any effort. With the
Yeah.
hard workouts, the trail runs, the mountain biking, even the cold water, like there's some effort and there's some mental toughness and grit needed to do those things. But with the sauna, like you drop in really fast with people, and there's no effort really required other than trying to stay in, once you start to get uncomfortable. But yeah, that's my favorite place for meeting new people, and it's my favorite place that I like to form community around.
Yeah, and there's a lot of humor. I've been in a few saunas, but like when someone's not a, I hope this is a word, but when someone's not a saunaer, if
Mhm.
that's the word, Eric, you'd tell me. But if someone's not a saunaer and they get in there the first time and they sit there and they're trying to like, keep it together, they're bound, humors are bound to come out. And then like people
Oh
kind
yeah.
of start becoming themselves really, really quick and you can laugh a lot and meet some new friends for sure.
Yeah, no, I've had some friends who are really fit. I can specifically think of one person who came about 3 weeks ago or a month ago, and he's a pretty elite runner, but he doesn't sauna very often. And I mean, his heart rate was about 140, 145, which I mean, my heart rate when I'm mountain biking is generally 135. I'm sure when he's running, his aerobic heart rate is in the 130s or low 140s, and like the sauna was so uncomfortable for him, it rose his heart rate that much.
Wow.
Um, because it's heat, and heat is a workout for your circulatory system. And if you're not used to it, then yeah, it can definitely be just like a hard workout for people.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Especially the cold plunges too, man. If you're not a cold plunger, again, making up words, man, that if you're not used to it, those first couple times it can literally be shocking.
For
Absolutely
sure.
shocking. Yeah, and I remember when I knew I was coming down there, I knew there was going to be cold plunging and contrast therapy, and I was like psyching myself up the whole time to that, Jesse, you could do it. You could do it. And it was good, man. Once my first dip in there, I could see the benefits, and it almost felt for me when I got out. I think I was in for 3 minutes. When I got out, my headspace changed. It was one of the first times I submerged for that long, and I could see the impact on psychologically, like how I felt afterwards. So I'm a believer. You turned me into a believer for sure.
Yeah, I mean the mood boost is incredible. Norepinephrine levels raise 100+%. 10 minutes after you do a cold plunge. Um, and like anything in life, though, I like doing these uncomfortable things because it makes other uncomfortable things that much more approachable and easier to commit to. It's kind of like public speaking. I mean, most people suck at public speaking until you do it a bunch, and once you've done it a
Reps.
bunch, you lose the anxiety around it. And cold exposure is the exact same. Hard workouts, same thing. All of these endurance things, same thing. Once you've done it, you're like, oh, okay, what else can I do? How much further can I push it? How much,
Yeah.
my ceiling is low. I can go way, way higher with my ceiling.
Yeah, right on. It's the repetitions. I want anyone listening to kind of get a glimpse of like a day in the life in terms of like your physical activity because you are a super active guy. So right now, what are you training for? And how many hours each day are you actively exercising towards those goals?
Yeah, right now I'm still training for CrossFit. I want to get to the CrossFit Games as a masters athlete. That's something that I've really been dedicated to for the past 4 or 5 years. And then Leadville mountain bike race. I do Leadville every year. It's a 104-mile mountain bike race in Leadville, Colorado, which the elevation starts at 10,200 and you climb up to 12,500. It's about 14,500 feet of climbing throughout the day. So, that's not something I can just show up to and do. So I have to train for that. And I love mountain biking. Like with that said, like I'm living my life in a way that I would do it regardless of whether I have these competitions or events that I want to partake in. Like I truly love the hard CrossFit workouts as much as they hurt in the moment. And, I love the 3 and 4 and 5 hour mountain bike rides. Just because again, it raises your ceiling. I like the progress aspect to it. But those are the two athletic endeavors that I'm training for right now.
Okay, there's so many options that people could choose if they want to just be fit, right? Whatever that means to them. But like, let's just say build muscle, be healthy, and live longer, healthier lives, be around for our loved ones. Why, when if you just look at like a meat and potatoes bro split hypertrophy type training program versus say CrossFit versus a very buzzword right now, but hybrid, where it's a mix of hypertrophy training with running, but not extreme lengths. All that said, you're a smart guy, you're well informed, you've tried everything. Why do you personally choose CrossFit? And then, since you've tried, running and ultra marathons, all those things, why do you personally prefer mountain biking? Those two.
Yeah, great questions. And to answer your previous question, I train 2 to 3 hours a day most days. One day out of the week or 2 days out of the week, I'll stay out of the gym, but I'll still bike on those days. The reason why I've chosen those specific things is because I feel the best in doing them. And I think the reason why I feel the best doing them is because it's a mix of strength, aerobic capacity, anaerobic capacity, skill, risk, being outside. All of those things contribute to them being my favorite activities. And like you said, I've tried it all. I've, swam, I've run on the road, I've trained for triathlon, I've trained for high rocks, and I just find that CrossFit and mountain biking, they yield the most flow state during and after, and I just feel my best in those. And both of them, I
Mm.
continue to improve in them. Like I got to a place in triathlon where I wasn't really improving anymore. I was training 25 hours a week just to, stay at a top level amateur. And I wasn't willing to make the other sacrifices to become a pro, which was basically losing more muscle mass and swimming more. I felt I started to feel pretty lethargic towards the end of my Ironman training years because my cortisol was so high from all of the endurance training. With CrossFit, I feel better because, I have the strength component and I have the anaerobic component where, I'm pushing myself in these high intensity interval workouts. Then obviously with CrossFit, you're lifting pretty heavy weight, but also the skill aspect to it, that and mountain biking. These aren't things that you can just do at a high level. You have to practice the movement patterns, the Olympic lifting. You have to practice gymnastics. And with mountain biking, I'm still progressing. I'm still getting better on my bike. It's not just checking out on the road and, moving your legs up and down. Like there's a massive skill component to it. So those are two other things I really enjoy about both of them. And with mountain biking, I'm outside. Like I love exercising outside. So, I check that box of one of my tiny wins of getting outside every single day for at least 60 minutes.
I love that. Not the answer I was expecting because it's not the common answer. I think a lot of people will choose their fitness program based on the outcome of how they want to look. And I think that guides a lot of people. Your answers are all in the realm of how it makes you feel.
100%.
And how it and I think actually when I was with you in person, you mentioned this. There's nothing like mountain biking when it comes to keeping you focused and dialed in on what you're doing. You can't zone out on a mountain bike like you can even when you're running on the road or when you're on a treadmill. Like you have to focus the whole time. Are you saying also that there's some cognitive benefits from that prolonged level of focus for doing things that require more skill, like mountain biking?
100%. I mean, think about how many distractions we have in our life now with technology. Notifications, easy access to everyone else on the planet, easy access to news, TVs. I mean, we have so many things that distract us. And I really feel like as a society, we're losing our ability to focus on one thing at a time. So much of why I do these things is because I feel like it yields the ability for me to focus when I'm having a conversation with someone, when I'm spending time with, Sarah and our dog Blaze. So yeah, that's so much of it. And again, with mountain biking specifically, or trail running instead of road running, there's that risk and skill component to it. So I feel like those specific activities, the presence is greater than just doing it on the road where there isn't as much of a skill or risk aspect to it.
Love that. What does Eric Hinman do with AirPods or music when he's doing these long mountain bikes? Do you listen to podcasts? You listen to music? Or are you out there silent?
Typically I listen to rap music. Oftentimes I'll listen to one song on repeat, either a hip hop song or some kind of like house music, like Rufus or Odessa. But yeah, I almost always have music going. Music, I feel like it fuels my energy and it drops me into the moment. I'll listen to podcasts when I'm in the sauna, but typically I'm going at an effort where it's tough to concentrate on a podcast. During my Ironman years, let's say I had a 5 or 5.5 hour bike that I was doing indoors on my trainer in my indoor gym. I would have a whole process for that. The first like 90 minutes, I would listen to a podcast because some of that was just kind of warming up and dropping into it. And then for about 2 hours, I would watch videos of the Ironman World Championships, or I would watch, a race that I was going to be doing and just kind of visualize how I was going to perform at that race. And then the final hour and a half or 2 hours, I would just blast hip hop music or some kind of house music, because at that point, like, my mind is, you're in pain
You
at the
send,
end.
yeah,
Three and a half
time to
hours
send
into
it.
it. Yeah,
You got to
into a
send it.
trainer ride indoors. You're in some pretty massive discomfort and you can't wait to get off the bike. So I would do whatever it took to continue just dropping in.
Love that. Hey man, you threw out one word. So when I first asked that question at like, hey, why do you choose CrossFit mountain biking? You listed a bunch of words. We hit on most of them. One we didn't. I heard it loud and clear. You said risk.
Mhm.
What is it about that that makes that appealing to you?
I mean, I love risk because I feel like risk raises your ceiling. I mean, that's why I'm an entrepreneur. That's why I invest in a lot of early stage wellness brands. I've never worked for anybody. I've always been an entrepreneur. I grew up in, watching my father lead people, watching my father dictate his own destiny. My mother was a school teacher. She worked really hard. I've always really embraced risk because I feel like the less risks we take, the more comfortable we get and the lower our ceiling is. And the more risks I've taken over the years, I mean, the larger the opportunities have gotten for me. I mean, if I was scared of what people thought of me and I never posted anything on social media, I wouldn't have this social media following, which has turned into a personal brand and given me the opportunity to meet you and so many other
Yeah.
amazing people. So, yeah, risk is something that I build into every single day of my life. And, they're calculated risks. I'm not going out there and rock climbing without a rope, without having any rock climbing skill. Like I ride very similar mountain bike trails day in and day out so that I know the trail. It's kind of like Alex Honnold when he's free climbing. Like he's done it so many times that, he's comfortable doing it. So with the risk, they're calculated risks. It's the same with investing in early stage companies. Like I've done it enough times. I've been burned enough times to start to understand what not to do and what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the context of CrossFit, does it imply that you choose that because you favor risk, that can be a riskier sport? Or am I kind of misinterpreting there?
Yeah, I would say CrossFit is less of that than the mountain biking.
The mountain
Mountain
biking.
biking, you just have to be present. Same with downhill trail running. You have to be present, but they're calculated risks. I do it often. I'm not going off ledges that I don't think I can clear. I just know that these are things where I have to be in the moment. And yeah, I guess I would say some with CrossFit, like the Olympic lifting, like if you're not in the moment, then they can be dangerous. So it
Hmm.
forces me to be in the moment so that my movement patterns are dialed in and I'm not thinking about other things. And again, like I feel like that just carries over to so many other aspects of life that, when I want to focus on a conversation with someone, when I want to focus on a creative task, when I want to create a really good piece of content, like I can drop into that and be really focused.
Two more weeds type questions, but I'm just going to piggyback off of that. Creating content. You mentioned, building and having the courage to post on Instagram, which has turned into a massive following. How a lot of people would say that being on social media a lot can develop into an addiction. And if it does, then you're going to be, multitasking. You're never truly getting into those flow states that you talk about in deep focus. How do you, as someone who's posting amazing content frequently, how do you keep that in check so that that doesn't develop into something that winds up maybe taking away from your goals, right? Instead of adding to it.
Yeah, great question. And I'm not perfect at this. I mean, Instagram, TikTok, any of these platforms are very, very good at sucking you in. So, I mean, for me, my days are pretty structured so that I don't have a lot of wasted time. I feel like when I get sucked in the most is if I'm flying on a plane, if, I'm sick, if I don't feel good, I don't have energy, and my day is derailed from what my normal day is. That's when I feel like I get sucked into just kind of doom scrolling. But I mean, typically, I'm on there for short periods of time to be inspired, to see what my friends and people I look up to are doing. But most of the time, I'm creating. I would say 90% of the time, I'm creating. And, I think that's the big lesson here is, use social media to be inspired, but you don't want it to turn into a comparison tool where you're comparing your life to others. Get inspired, get creative ideas. I certainly get creative ideas from people I follow on social media, but then like create your own path, create your own destiny, create your own content. You do you. I think that's important. Just get inspired from it, take it, apply it to your life, but do things for you that are going to be fulfilling and that are going to allow you to progress.
I love that. Well said. Basically, it's like you're creating and not consuming. And as long as you have a healthy kind of mix between those two very different activities, you'll be good to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that. And, I think we all go through these phases where, it may be skewed one way or the other, but just recognize that, okay, right now I'm in a consumption phase. I'm trying to get inspired, learn. I'm trying to get unstuck from this rut I'm in. But, I'm moving towards this new path where I'm going to be creating again, and I'm not just going to be consuming all the time.
I have one more kind of specific question around CrossFit, right? So I don't personally do CrossFit and I don't do Olympic lifts, right? So snatches and cleans and all those things. In your opinion, like, do you think somebody can feel confident that they have a good, reliable fitness program without doing Olympic type lifting? Or do you think that that's a necessary component that all fitness programs should include?
I don't think it's necessary at all. I mean, I think if you're doing complex lifts, back squats, front squats, deadlifts, pressing movements, overhead pressing movements, core work, anaerobic conditioning, aerobic conditioning, you're good. You don't need to do Olympic lifts. You don't need to use a barbell. You don't need to use a kettlebell. You don't need to use a dumbbell. Like, pick something. And the
I
best
love it.
thing is stay consistent with whatever it is you pick. It could be, body weight type movements that'll give you benefit with strength. It could be body weight movements like burpee box jump overs that spike your heart rate, or sprints. It doesn't have to be on an assault bike or, a skill-based CrossFit Metcon. For mobility, you can
Right.
do yoga, you can stretch. There's so many ways to be fit. So, I wouldn't say any one way is the best way. The best way is something that you're going to do consistently. And I do think that, lifting moderately heavy weights, doing complex movements, and then, getting your heart rate high and also sustaining your heart rate in that 130 to 150 aerobic heart rate zone for, 30 to 45 minutes of time, doing a mix of all of that is going to allow you to be, an incredible father, an incredible business owner, an incredible friend, an incredible just person. You'll feel good day in and day out. You'll be energized. And I think that the mix of those things is going to lead to, the longest health span and lifespan.
Now let's move towards, if you could, man, your perfect day, right? And that's what you call it. And if anyone wants to read about Eric's perfect day, it's on his website. You can follow him on Instagram. I'll link to it. But I'll start with this. To kind of put myself in the quote consumer's chair of someone who's relatively inactive and looking to make a change in their life to become A, more active, be more fit, look better, feel better, confident, all the things. If you just kind of step into the world of fitness and just consume information, it can be overwhelming, right? There's nutritional concepts, there's some training concepts that we already just kind of talked about there. And then, like, just in the last 5 years, folks like yourself and other ones out there that are really shedding light on things like contrast therapy and cold exposure and saunaing. And you can start to see, if you're not already in that space, how someone that just wants to move in a direction, you feel like, where do I go and where do I start? But because you've tried it all, you've learned it all, and you're not just in that space, you are an expert in that space, physical fitness, wellness, mindfulness, the whole deal. I think you explaining your perfect day and then also why can kind of help people start to make those decisions to move incrementally in those directions. Big diatribe to ask you, can you just walk us through your perfect day and just make little pivots and explain why it is you choose to do those things and how it benefits you?
For sure. Yeah. And I'll start by saying, I mean, I can kind of prioritize what worked best for me. I feel like the most common question I get is what supplements you take. And I feel like supplements are the icing on the cake. Like, for the things where you're going to get the most benefit, they're probably going to be the hardest to do, like exercise, hard workouts, lifting
Right.
heavy weight, anaerobic conditioning, aerobic conditioning, doing triathlons. So for me, I mean, the top of the food pyramid is dialing in exercise. That's not something I'm ever going to miss. If I'm traveling, I book a flight, later in the morning so that I can get my morning exercise in. The number two thing that I massively prioritize is sleep, getting at least 8 hours of sleep. We don't have kids. So, obviously, if you have kids, then that's going to fall by the wayside at certain times in your life. But, I religiously get to bed around the same time each day and I wake up for around the same time each day with no alarm. So sleep is number two for me. Diet is number three. Dialing in a dietary routine that you enjoy, but it's not rocket science. Eating single ingredient foods that you can hunt, kill, catch, or source in nature. Shopping
Harvest.
the perimeter of a grocery store instead of the processed foods. And then, recovery I would put next, some kind of recovery routine, whether it's just going for a walk each day to improve blood flow, or, like what we have, the sauna and ice barrel. You could even take a hot Epsom salt bath. That's an amazing recovery protocol. And then I would put supplements, at the very bottom of the list. With that said, I mean, there's some things, if they yield benefit, like nootropics or caffeine, where they'll lead to a behavior like exercise or a sleep supplement that is going to help improve your sleep. Like, yeah, I truly believe in those, but they're leading to this behavior, that the behavior is the thing that's really making a massive change. And then, I mean, my perfect day, I'll read it for you. I have what I coin these tiny wins that I've developed over time. And most of these came during my Ironman years, when I had a lot of time alone in nature with my heart rate elevated. And I kind of consider that my 4-year psychedelic experience. Just, I started to think through like how I wanted my day designed, and, what things I was doing, what people I was around, what environments I was in, where I was completely in the moment. And then all of those things where I didn't feel aligned and I was not in the moment. I was wishing I was somewhere else. I was wishing I was with someone else. I was wishing I was doing something else. So ultimately, that 4-year period led to this list of my tiny wins. So here's mine. And, this is going to be different for everyone. Again, like lifestyles, factors are going to play into what your perfect day is. So for me, sleep at least 7 hours. Typically I get 8 plus. Attempt to make the perfect espresso. I love starting my morning with something, again, skill-based, where I can progress. So every morning I go down the stairs, I turn my espresso machine on, and Sarah and I kind of go back and forth of trying to make the perfect espresso for each other. There's my girlfriend for
a little competition in your perfect day as well.
Yeah, I do like competition. Get outside for at least 60 minutes combined with exercise. Lift something heavy, preferably with others that share the same passion. Get my heart rate above 155 beats per minute. Meet one new person. I try to meet at least one new person every single day. Generally, that's in person, but it also is interacting with people on social media that eventually I often meet in person. Have several engaging conversations. A lot of times that's having a podcast with someone, being on calls with various brands that I work with. Like, I want to be able to add value and get value in the relationships I have. I think when the sum is greater than the parts, that's a great relationship. Introduce 2 people that will benefit from knowing each other. I love just like introducing people that I think will add value into each other's lives. Tell friends, family, and or your spouse, partner, you love them. Hug, kiss, and share your love with those closest to you. Do something kind, give with no expectations. Create something, whether it's content, a community event, just do something creative. Learn something new, read, listen to a podcast, or learn from another human. Some kind of self-care, mind, body, and or spirit. So for me, that's generally sauna and ice, but could be yoga, meditation. Eat wholesome food with positive people. We have people over here almost every single night that we do communal dinners with. Participate in something community-oriented. That's oftentimes our contrast therapy sessions, where we invite friends over every night. And then plan an adventure. I love having things that I look forward to on a daily basis, and like big things that I'm looking forward to in the future.
Man, I love it. And here's what I'll say as I listened to that, and I listened intently. What was occurring to me is that you're a man that walks the walk, because you've modeled that to me. I mean, I kicked off the show by saying you invited me down to work out with you. You're meeting someone new. You've personally introduced me to multiple people and connected me with people that I'm now connected to, who are going to bless me in my life. And I could go on and on, but what's just, as just listening to you, it's just like, I admire the fact that you are not just saying these things. I've personally seen you model them, which is absolutely awesome. That's good stuff, man. 2024, we are about halfway through. In another month or so, what are you excited or looking forward to about the rest of the year?
Man, I got a lot to look forward to. I have this water bike ride from the Bahamas to Florida in June, 80 miles, that I'm excited about, and I'm sure as it gets closer, I'll be anxious about. I have Leadville mountain bike race that I'm really excited about. I have a lot of good friends coming into town in July that I'm taking to Leadville to do a Leadville training camp. Most of them are doing the Leadville 100 run. I have Kauai coming up in September, the Ultimate Hawaiian Trail Run, and I always we curate a group of like 10 or 15 really close friends that we go to Kauai with each year. Founders only, Palm
Founders
Springs,
only.
Clouds in October. I'm looking forward to. I can't wait for that. So yeah, each month I feel like I have some fun adventure with close friends that I'm really looking forward to.
That's amazing. Well, man, you're an inspiration. You're a kind and generous soul. I've joked before and said this to you. When I grow up one day, I want to be Eric Hinman, man. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Sober Strength podcast. I really appreciate you, Eric.
Happy to, Jesse.
All right, everybody, that's the show. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sober Strength podcast and spending some time with us today. We've got a favor to ask. If you enjoyed the show, would you please consider subscribing to the show and even leaving a rating and review? That simple act drastically helps us reach more people in our mission to help them live better, longer, healthier lives. You can also follow us if you'd like on Instagram and YouTube for regular tips and motivation around mental health, addiction, and so much more. Know that your support fuels our brand and is greatly appreciated. So until next time, stay strong and live deep.